All right. So one of the things that is beautiful about a story is you all know there's a plot, and I'm looking, where did our writer go? She disappeared. But our writer here is writing a book, and she's got a plot that goes through the book. And you know what a plot is, right? It's the main idea. But there's times in a story, and this creates suspense, where the plot seems to go nowhere, and it's like, they call it the twist. There's a twist. Yeah. And you go, oh no, how's it going to work out now? Well, that happens here. And it's not like God's just trying to write a nice story for us, but if you were experiencing this in real time, there would be a point at which, if you were Ruth or Naomi, you would go, oh no, it's not going to work out. Okay, so look at chapter 3, verse 12. You remember when we talked about how Ruth went in, knew where Boaz slept in the threshing floor, probably for safety reasons, because the Philistines and others were always coming in, stealing their grain. This was during the time of the judges. And so she knew where he was going to lay down, so she went in, remember, because she had a request. Please throw your skirt, your talith, over me. And I showed you last week, when the Jewish weddings happen, the man takes his talith and puts it over his wife. Oh, wait a minute. This is my wife over. See, she wasn't here last week when I explained this. I had to use Jojo as an example. But that's the Jewish custom. You throw your talith, your skirt, and it's a symbolizing marriage. And she says to Boaz, when he wakes up and he goes, who's there? Obviously it's dark and he's protecting his grain. Anyone would be scared if there's an extra person in the room in the dark. And she said, I'm Ruth. And she says, please throw your talith over me. But in verse 12, here's what he says. He says, it's true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Okay, so you remember what he said to her, I would love to, however, there's someone closer in line that has the right to do that, to be the kinsman redeemer. And we looked at that in the book of Deuteronomy, where it explained how that happened. We looked at that last week. So what happens is he sends her home in chapter 3, and he says, go home, don't tell anybody about this, I'll take care of it. And what does he do? He arranges a meeting with that other person. The other person who is closer in line. And now think about this. In Deuteronomy, the law that we looked at for the kinsman, the goel, the redeemer it's called, it's usually a brother. Right? Remember how it works? If a man has a wife and he dies, then his brother is to marry that woman, and the first child would be named after the brother who died to continue his line, his heritage. So Elimelech has died. Boaz is maybe a cousin. He's close, but he's not as close as maybe a brother. So maybe this other person, we don't know who he is because he's never named in chapter 4. But Boaz goes and finds him, because he's the closest brother or relative to Elimelech who died. So he has dibs on Ruth. Okay? According to Deuteronomy 25. We can look at that again. But look what Boaz does. Now you remember, Ruth goes home and tells Naomi, I gleaned in the field of a man named Boaz. And she goes, oh, he's one of our relatives. And there's the plot. Oh, wow, this is how it's all going to work out. Ruth, this is going to be amazing. You're going to be cared for. You're going to have a home. You're going to have a husband. But Boaz, in chapter 4, here's where we're going to pick it up, goes down and finds this other guy, unnamed, and he takes him down to the gate, which is where the leaders would sit. Are y'all following me here? Chapter 4, verse 1. And so here the kinsman, comes walking by and he goes, ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. So Boaz calls in whoever this guy is. Maybe it's Elimelech's brother, but he's pretty close in the family. And then he took 10 men of the elders and sat them down. Now, why was this? Well, this was because this is how it was explained in Deuteronomy. This is how you do it. And so he said to the kinsmen, verse 3, you remember Naomi? She came back from the land of Moab, and she had sold her land. So that gives us a little clue of what happened. Elimelech and Naomi had sold their land and gone to Moab during the famine. So Naomi comes back, she has no land. Where she's living, we don't know. Maybe with friends or whoever, but he says, this is Boaz, he says to this man, he said, she sold the land which was our brother Elimelech's. I thought to advise thee, verse 4, buy it before the inhabitants. So what he's saying is, you got first dibs on it. Why don't you buy the land? Well, that seems pretty attractive. Who wouldn't want to have land? You know, let's say you live on a 5-acre parcel and the 5 acres beside you is up for sale. Where do you go? Hey, I'd like to have that little bit of extra land, or the one beside me, or whatever. Well, it's very attractive. And what's he say? Verse 4 at the end. I'll do it. I'll buy the land. Notice what Boaz didn't say. What didn't he say? There's a woman that comes along with it. He didn't say that. He just told him about the land. Now this is really interesting. What's Boaz thinking? He only talked about the land. And the guy goes, I will redeem it. Now, I don't know if Naomi and Ruth were there, because this is a public meeting at the gate of Bethlehem. Maybe they were standing back listening. I don't know. My creative imagination says they were back there going, oh yeah, this is really going to be great. Oh no. Oh no. He said he'll buy the land. And Naomi might have looked at Ruth and gone, well, there went all our plans. I don't know. I'm just thinking. What a letdown. Because really, this is a twist in the plot. It's not going to work now. Because the guy said, verse 4, I will redeem it. Okay. I'll do it. But verse 5, Boaz. Then said Boaz, what day you buy the field, you must buy it also of Ruth. You got to take the woman along with it. All right. The Moabitess, the wife of the dead, you got to raise up a name of the dead upon his inheritance. And what's he say? Verse 6, the kinsman said, I can't redeem. There's no way. Forget what I said. Forget about the land. And what's the excuse he gives? Lest I mar my own inheritance and redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot. What did he mean by I'm going to mar my own inheritance? Well, think about what he has to do. He's got a family, and maybe he has kids. He's already divided up in his mind the inheritance for his kids. And now he's going to marry a Moabitess, and he's going to have a child by her, and then maybe more. What's that going to do to the inheritance? It's going to mess up his whole system. He's got it all figured out, and he doesn't want to bring in this extra piece to the puzzle. Are you following me here? It makes sense.
Did it have anything to do with the fact
Or
that she was a Moabitess?
Could be, but Deuteronomy says you have to take your brother's wife. And so he was obliged to take it, unless, we might look at the passage here in a minute. There is one way out. Maybe there's somebody else who would do it, but there is another way out. But he didn't want to mess up his own inheritance. He had it figured out. Maybe he didn't want another wife. I don't know. It doesn't explain. All it explains is he says, I don't want to mar my own inheritance. I cannot add this to my own situation.
My study Bible here. It says, although the nearer kinsman wanted to redeem the field that Naomi had it for sale, Apparently, the additional expense of providing for a wife, together with the probability of losing the property if a son should be born to the widow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right, because the son that is born,
he would take
inheritor
precedence.
of the property that would have been his had the father.
Right.
lived.
Right.
And think about this. We're saying one son. What if there was a bunch of them born?
Right, yeah.
I mean, what's going to stop Ruth from having more than one? And see, he doesn't want this. He's got it all figured out. He doesn't want to complicate the scenario. But thank you, Gene. That's good. So he says, sorry, I'm not interested. And you can just see Ruth going, whew, that was close. She almost lost Boaz to this, and she would have been married to another guy. All right. Well, let's do this. Hold your place there. Let's go back to Deuteronomy. I'm referring to it, but we really need to. Deuteronomy 25. Let's just read it again. I know we did last week, but let's refresh our memory. Deuteronomy 25. Here's what the law said. Deuteronomy 25, verse 5. If brethren, Deuteronomy 25:5, you all see it there?
Yes.
If brethren dwell together, and one of them shall die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her, take her to his wife, perform the duty of a husband's brother to her, and it shall be that the firstborn which she bears shall succeed in the name of the brother which is dead. There it is. How clear is that? Okay? The purpose is, that his name be not put out of Israel. God put a lot of importance on families and heritage. And if a guy dies without having a son, the wife, the brother has to marry that wife. And here's how it works. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, so let's say the guy says, I got my own wife, I'm not interested. Then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of the city will call him and speak to him. And if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her, then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, loose his shoe off his foot, spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto that man that will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel in the house of him that hath his shoe loosed. Basically, this is it. He's going to be shamed for the rest of his life. He's going to be called the guy that wouldn't help his brother's wife. Okay?
So would this be a brother of wasting and sickly and
Could be.
yeah.
Probably the brother of.
Or maybe Elimelech, or maybe a cousin, but at least it was close. It was a close one. So, you see, God made provision for a woman whose husband died and didn't have a son. All right. So that's the law. So let's go back to Ruth chapter 4. So Boaz presents to him, hey, there's land that you're the first one in line. You could get that land of Naomi's. You could buy it back, basically, from whoever she sold it to. And he goes, yeah, I'll do it. And then he finds out, no, the wife comes with it. No, not interested.
Why do you suppose Boaz did it that way?
You know, that's a really good question. Why did he put it out there and then the guy jumped at it, and then when he realized the whole picture...
Yeah, why didn't he give him the whole picture at first?
Maybe Boaz had inside information and knew that the guy had sons.
Yeah.
You know, why wouldn't he just tell him at the get-go?
You know,
Look at the shock.
He wants to be a little deceptive. He knows the guy is
Right,
He's,
yeah.
and so he just wants to see if he can get him to where he says, no, I don't want this.
Well,
Yeah.
think about a person who thinks they're gonna get the lottery. And they're so excited about it. Yeah, I want that. All I have to do is buy this little piece of land. Oh, no, you get this old rundown mansion that is gonna cost you half or 3/4 of your lottery to build back that. Well, I don't want that.
Well, I just, it still doesn't answer to me why you wouldn't just tell him at the beginning.
I think it was,
Because I wasn't gonna wanna do it.
I think it's the way of setting up an argument.
Could be.
Here's what I think, this is what I want, is that,
Okay.
does he want to make sure that Ruth knows
Ah,
that she's getting the better deal?
Yeah,
wow, what a great idea.
that's a good idea.
He's happy to have the land,
Yeah.
but not you, he doesn't want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, think
Whereas
of,
you know that I want you.
yeah, think of, what is this portraying? It's portraying that Boaz really loves her.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of changed his mind. He knew he would have to take Ruth, but he would also have to provide for Naomi too, correct?
Right.
yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a package
You
deal.
got 2 extra.
Right, right. Because it's Naomi's field that he's going to be buying.
And I think the fact too that he had to do it in the way of the custom, which was to offer it,
Right.
Yeah.
to the kinsman. That he went along with custom,
I think that shows the righteousness of Boaz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He was a man-
He could have just like,
followed
Right.
the law.
Yeah.
He
What's
could have not
right?
said a word. So, yeah, that does show how upright.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that the man who turned her down is gonna get spit in his face? and
Yeah, I
called
see that.
No, because there was a runner-up that was ready to take it.
Got it.
Yeah, Deuteronomy is when a guy says, "I am not," and there's nobody else. Yeah, he's got to be. And Boaz maybe could have spit in his face, but he didn't. He treated him kindly and said, "Okay, take off. I'll take care of it." All right. So, verse 7, we saw there that Boaz did it according to Deuteronomy. Pulled the elders together. He took off his shoe and gave it to the neighbor, and it was a testimony. And verse 8, kinsman said to Boaz, "You buy it." So Boaz now, verse 9, he says to the elders, "Okay, you're all witnesses. The first one didn't want, so I'm next in line." All right, verse 10. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife to raise up. That's interesting that he didn't really purchase a wife, but he purchased the field and she came with it. But interesting how he says it. To raise up.
That respect again. I love the woman, the land comes with her.
Yeah. Purchased to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. The name of the dead shall not be cut off from among the brethren, from the gate of his place. Your witnesses this day. Wow, what a noble guy, He did what was right. And all the people that were in the gate were witnesses. That's verse 11. Now, I want to focus on what they say. Look at what they say. The people that were there said, "We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that has come into thy house," that's Ruth, "like Rachel and Leah." Now, what could they possibly mean when they say, "Ruth, the Lord make you like Rachel and Leah"? What do you think they're saying?
Because Rachel and Leah were the mothers of most of the tribes of Israel.
Fruitful.
They were very fruitful, and their
Right.
children had great names.
That's right.
Great.
So the 12 tribes came from the 12 sons, Leah and Rachel, and then the handmaids had a little bit to do with it there. You could go back to Genesis and see that. Right.
Not all of them.
Right.
Most of them.
But they were fruitful,
Yes.
which again reminds me Ruth probably had more than one son. We know she had Obed, but more than that. Okay, then they say something interesting. Well, let's finish verse 11. Which two did build the house of Israel? Yeah, the 12 tribes. Do worthily to Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. But verse 12, let thy house be like the house of Pharez or Perez. It's the same name, which Tamar bore to Judah. Now, you have to go back to Genesis, and let's just talk about it. I don't want to take a lot of time going back, but Judah was one of the sons. What happened is Judah had 3 boys.
Oh, Tamar.
He had 3 boys. Remember the story?
Yes. Oh.
The oldest one, God killed him.
Yeah.
We're not told exactly what he did, but he was evil and God slew him. The second son, I think his name was Onad. Well, anyway, the first son had a wife named Tamar. So see, hopefully I'm not losing you in the details. Judah had 3 boys.
Wasn't it and Onan?
Was the first, married to Tamar. God killed So Judah says to his second son, you need to marry her. Now, the law hadn't been written then. This is Genesis. But there was a sense in which when a guy dies, the brother marries the wife.
They still had the kinsman redeemer rule.
They had it, but it wasn't fully developed into a law yet, but they were practicing it. Okay. So you know the story, Onan. Judah tells Onan, you got to marry Tamar. Well, he refuses and he does something wrong, and God kills him too because he refused. So now Judah's only got 3 boys,